All right, back here on HQ Spotlight, the Sweet 16 is set. Now, prior to the tournament, we were talking about teams that fit the championship mold. If you forgot, which I have a couple of times, that means you're in the top 21 in offensive efficiency, the top 31 in defensive efficiency. Going into the tournament, there were 8 teams that fit the mold this season. Wisconsin, Iowa State, Gonzaga, obviously no longer in the mix, no longer dancing. So we have 5 teams left. You see them there. All the 1 seeds plus Tennessee that still fit that championship mold. We're going to discuss if they can, still have a clear pathway, what we've seen so far, how you guys are feeling. Chip Patterson, Kenzie Brooks here to talk about it. And we were starting with Auburn, the #1 overall seed. This is a squad that going into the tournament lost 3 of the last 4, So a lot of folks were a little uneasy about them. We saw them in some tight contests in the first 2 rounds. Kenzie, I will start with you. Where are you feeling on Auburn based off of what you saw in rounds 1 and 2 as they're, in the Sweet 16 and trying to make a run here?
It's I go back and forth with them. I don't know if it makes me feel better that they're winning games, playing at their floor. Like, they're winning games. I think we haven't even seen peak Auburn yet. Imagine what they're going to do when Broome really pops off. And the other half of me is like, why haven't they popped off yet? So, whatever way you want to turn it, I am in the situation where regression to the mean is always something I will say. There will be a game where Broome really just takes over. I think he was in a tough situation with Kalkbrenner, who I think very highly of. So going into this specific matchup against Michigan, I think he'll have it a lot easier time. Do I think Auburn overall has the easiest path to the Final Four, the national championship? Not necessarily, but definitely a top 2 situation up there with Duke.
Yeah, I would say that if I've got any discomfort, it hasn't necessarily been addressed in a positive way. This Auburn team, slow starts to both of its games. You look up against Alabama State. It's a 1-point game with a minute and a half left. Are we going to see a UMBC? Nah, they put it to bed in the second half. And then the Creighton game as well. That was very competitive. They were trailing at halftime before pulling away. And this is what is concerning, is that you can't get off to these slow starts as the competition gets more difficult and expect that you can win a national championship. And don't get it twisted. The way that Auburn has played basketball this season, winning a national championship is the goal. Getting to the Final Four is the goal. That they cannot get off to slow starts again in the second weekend and expect to make it to San Antonio. But I will throw this last caveat on there. These games, the South Regional, going to be played in Atlanta. That's the airport you fly into when you're going to Auburn, if you didn't know. I think Auburn's going to turn that place into the jungle East Edition, and hopefully the home fans can be able to inspire better starts for the Tigers.
So unlike Auburn, Duke has looked every bit the 1 seed. They won with margin. And I don't even know how many times Cooper Flagg's taken a back seat in a postgame press conference, but Tyrese Proctor certainly stole the show in the last round. Kenz, what are we thinking about Duke here getting to the Sweet 16 and moving forward?
We've loved them. Since Selection Sunday, we've looked at Duke and looked at that East region and say, hey, this is just the cakewalk relative to the Final Four. If there's a team, a 1 seed with the easiest shot to get there, we think it's them. We have them a 76% chance to beat Arizona, then likely go on and play Bama, 73% chance to beat them. If you're a 73% chance favorite in an Elite 8 game in our model, that's a really good spot to be. By the Elite 8, it's closer to 60, 62%. To be, we're calling this almost a 10-point game against Alabama. I mean, talk about an edge in that situation. So I do love Duke. I mean, this is just such a complete team. Obviously, they fit that championship mold, and they're top 5 in both of those, efficiency. It's not like they're just barely fitting this mold. They are the poster child of the mold.
Yeah, Cooper Flagg's better now than he was a couple weeks ago. The coaching staff really believes that the time off had allowed the freshmen to be able to reset after the grind of the regular season. So, we always see LeBron in the NBA kind of go on his hiatus so he can come back for the playoff run. We have got a renewed and rejuvenated Cooper Flagg, National Player of the Year favorite, just going full speed ahead. And the emergence of Tyrese Proctor, you mentioned him, 13 for 16 from behind the arc. That is going to regress to the mean. But just the fact that he's playing with so much confidence is so important. Now, a lot of national championship runs, when the super team actually gets it done, has a point in that tournament run where somebody who's not the star really takes that step forward. Now, you might remember Justice Winslow, if I'm speaking to Duke fans here, being that kind of player for Duke in the 2015 title run. This is what they wanted to see. Tyrese Proctor, in his 3rd year in the program, playing some of his best basketball when it matters the most. Duke comes at you in waves, man. I mean, it is just size, it is length, it is athleticism, and raw talent, and that's why the War Machine has been blowing everybody out in this tournament.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that Cooper Flagg was dealing with, a sprained ankle just a couple of weeks ago from that ACC tournament.
NBA players could never, the way he responds.
And we'll see in a year if that translates over, right, to the next level. All right, guys, we got to talk about the Florida Gators because they were in the Sweet 16 for the first time since 2017, trying to get to a Final Four for the first time since 2014. Chip, there's two, I feel like, theories here if we're looking at the Florida-UConn game, right? Because some folks are saying to be the best, you got to beat the best. It's good that you're battle-tested maybe so early. We're seeing Walter
Keep telling
Clayton.
yourself this.
I am. I'm going to tell myself this till the cows come home because the Florida disrespect is kind of crazy on the airwaves sometimes. But I get it, Chip, because you're in this tough battle, and Florida, specifically Walter Clayton on defense, is not looking great in that first half against UConn. Where are you at? We'll start with you with Florida moving forward based off of especially the performance you saw against Dan Hurley and UConn, where it really was a nail-biter down to the final seconds, it felt like.
Yeah, I think that was the best bleeping coach in the sport put together a game plan that allowed a team that didn't have as much talent or depth to be able to hang with a true national championship contender. I don't really knock Florida at all. Todd Golden told us in some more explicit language, I'll edit it, but basically when the money was on the table, his guys stepped up. When it was time to go out there and win the game, they delivered that 8-0 run. Walter Clayton with the big shots, Elijah Martin, Will Richard, everybody hitting the floor to get those offensive rebounds after the missed free throws. I come away from it impressed. I think that is a Florida team that got a huge, proud haymaker from the two-time back-to-back champs and one of the best coaches in the game, and they were able to respond the only way they know how, and that is just to continue to be relentless with all of their depth, with all of their options, and eventually some of those shots were going to fall. So I think that Florida getting over UConn is an incredible confidence boost. I think that the Gators remain to be a team that has the makeup of a national champion. And one final note here, Dan Hurley told us that this Florida team looks like UConn teams that won the title. He admitted it doesn't look like the UConn team that he had this year, but with their depth of bigs, with their experience at the guard position, Dan Hurley almost sounded envious of the roster construction and the team that Todd Golden has put together for the Gators. So if Florida looks like UConn teams of 24 and 23, that means they've got the same ceiling. That's winning it all.
Yeah, I don't knock them for being in a close game with UConn. I've said since Selection Sunday, too, Florida will have the hardest path of the one seeds. And I know it wasn't the UConn of the past, but I was like, hey, you're playing the back-to-back national champs. The coach is still there. Like, there's nothing easy about that game. And unfortunately, we just happen to be really high on Maryland and really high on Texas Tech as well. So knowing they likely have to go through both of them to then advance, it just feels like this is a team, and it's not a dink to them, but these teams in their region are going to just wear and tear at them. I think Maryland's alive to win that game, and if not them, I think Texas Tech is alive as well. So as far as the draw they have, it just seems like a tougher road than Duke.
So even with St. John's being out, was the model?
We were always anti the Johnnies, so
okay. Okay, I just didn't know. I had to
the metrics, not so high on the Johnnies.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's worth mentioning though. Yeah, that the one of the faces behind Sportsline also is from Baltimore.
Yes,
and so that is. I just need to throw that out there. But okay.
And we have a Gator too, though. So
yes,
we are.
That is true. That is true.
But the ultimate boss is from Baltimore.
Yeah. Yes.
Ken, speaking of metrics here, if we get to go Cougs and Kelvin Sampson in Houston, I know we focus on this year, but they've been a 1 seed the last 3 years, or 2 years plus this year, so 3 straight here. And also they're healthy right now. I don't know if the metrics factor into that right now, but I just certainly feel, speaking of Mole, that they've got everything going. If they can stay healthy, they've got a good shot. Yeah,
we were saying the same exact thing here. It's crazy because Houston obviously was always the defense, and now we're just upgrading their offense game after game. It gets slightly upgraded, and they become bigger favorites and bigger favorites against the other teams that they were going against. So I think Purdue's a team that they will match up really well with. Like you said, as long as they stay healthy, that's what it's about. I think this is an offense that is so underrated to this point. But I have a nice little stat for us that might squash the championship mold stat here. Okay, get a load of this.
Okay, here we go.
No champ since 2004. 2004, which I still had like a pacifier in my mouth just to give context of how long ago that was. If you were not top 12 in week 6 of the AP poll, you did not win a national championship. They were not top 12 in week 6.
That's like a very college football stat, ain't it, Chip? It's like if you weren't ranked this high, you were never getting a shot back then.
I don't care what this team has to offer. Clearly, according to week 6 of the AP poll,
that was a lot of demarcation there. Chip?
Yeah, I'll break out the trapezoid of excellence if y'all want to see how pace goes against net rating, and I can also draw this out. There's lots of different ways that we can pick our champ, but Houston can still get this thing done. Houston can break that trend right there. The issue is going to be whether they're going to get both of these guards going at the same time. LJ Cryer can fill it up from outside. Milos Uzan can go and make plays at the rim, but if they are not both going at the same time, they're going to be pushed. Maybe not by Purdue, but at least by the winner of Kentucky, Tennessee. I think that when you're playing in Indianapolis against all of those teams, Kelvin Sampson's Cougars are going to have it be a little bit of an uphill battle.
So we've gone through all of the teams that are the 1 seeds that still fit this mold, that are still in it, of course. Now, the one lone team that is not on the 1 line, but still technically fits the mold, is Tennessee.
Yes.
So, Kenz, I'm curious, how does the model and where are you guys at on Tennessee with what Gainey and Chaz Lanier, what they are doing and what you've seen so far? And we have this really great matchup on deck for Friday as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly possible. We like them against Kentucky, give them the 60% chance to win, and we only make them 4-point dogs against Houston if it comes down to that in the Elite Eight. So all, very feasible upsets for Tennessee here. I'll be honest, a team we didn't really talk about too much is values for us. I think they ended up seated right where they should be seated as far as our percent chance to make the Final Four to win the national championship. Texas Tech is the only non-1 seed ahead of them in our eyes, but I mean, yeah, they're chugging along. I truly, no notes for Tennessee right now. That's what I have to say.
Tennessee rounds out the 5 teams that I thought could go on a run when we talked about this mold before the tournament started. Oh, and would you look at it? Those are the only 5 teams that ended up making it through to the second weekend. Here's the thing about the Vols. They have, with both Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler, an ability to be able to trade paint with a Kentucky team that it has lost to twice already. Now, everybody's going to say it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but one of the reasons why they have 2 losses to the Wildcats this year is not being able to hold up their end of the bargain offensively. To be able to see Chaz Lanier start to really get hot there in the opening weekend, that is something that Tennessee has to have if they're going to be able to get past Kentucky. And then if they can go on to play Houston or Purdue, then things might open up a little bit, in my opinion. This first matchup for Tennessee is going to be everything when it comes to their Final Four hopes.
All right, Chip, Kenz, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks for playing along. I feel like whenever I talk about Florida, I got to take a couple of deep breaths,
Yeah, it's
been a stressful couple of weeks. I thought I was going to literally lose my mind during the UConn game, but we appreciate it, guys. All right, the Sweet 16, it is set Thursday and Friday. You can watch all the action on CBS and, of course, streaming on Paramount Plus as well.